Hi. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the heart. So I've got three main learning objectives today. So the first one is we need to learn how to define the heart. So the definition of the heart, and also we need to know the function of the heart. So why do we have the heart? Why do humans have a heart? And what's the whole point of it? The second learning objective is we need to know the function of blood, because obviously, as you know, the heart is very much really well related with the blood, and we need to know the function of the blood in order to fully understand the function of the heart. And then next we need to understand the process of blood circulation. So i.e. how does blood flow around the body through the heart? Okay, so those are the three main learning objectives that we have today. And we're going to start off with a definition of the heart. Excuse me. So what the heart is, it's a muscular organ that is situated in the chest of humans, that has a function of pumping blood around the body. And it specifically has a double circulatory system. Okay, so once again, it's a muscular organ, so meaning it's an organ that is mainly made out of muscle, that allows itself to pump blood around the body. Okay, so that's the definition of the heart. And by learning the definition of the heart, we've already covered the function of the heart. So you guys now know that the function of the heart is to pump blood all around the body. So now, in order to understand why the heart is important, we need to understand the function of blood. Because I've just told you that the function of the heart is to pump blood around the body. So now we know that the heart is important, but why is it important? It's important because it pumps blood around the body. So if the function of the heart is to pump blood around the body, then and that makes it important, then that means blood must be extremely important for humans as well. Okay, so that leads us on to the second learning objective, which is the function of blood. Okay, so the whole point why we have blood in our body is that it delivers oxygen to our organs, our tissues, and just all the muscles in general. Okay, so we need blood to survive because it provides us with oxygen. Without oxygen, our tissues and our organs cannot carry out a process called respiration, which is the process by which we form energy. And without forming energy through respiration, we can't survive, we can't live. Okay, so if you take away blood and you take away the oxygen that is being delivered to our tissues and our muscles and our organs, then we end up dying because we cannot survive without the oxygen and the blood that we get supplied to our tissues and organs. Okay, so we've already covered what the definition of the heart is and also what the function of the heart is, and we've already now covered the function of the blood. So at this point, I'll ask you just to sort of recite back to me, or just teach me what is the heart, number one, what is the function of the heart, and also what is the function of blood, and why is the blood so important for humans. Okay, so now we've covered that, we can now move on to the process of blood circulation. Okay, so at this point, what we're going to look at is we're going to look at how blood flows through the heart to go to the tissues in our body, the organs and the muscles. Okay, so I've got these two diagrams here. The one on the left is a nice colourful one, and the one on the right is a bit more simplified. And I'll be drawing on each of these just to sort of make sure that that it's easy to understand. Okay, so the first thing we need to understand is that there are two types of blood vessels. So blood vessels are essentially like, if you imagine it like pipes, and inside a pipe you've got water that flows through it. So just like that, inside these vessels, blood flows through it. So it's a huge network that runs through the whole human body. And the whole point of these blood vessels is to carry blood from the heart to the muscles, or from the muscles or from the organs to the heart. Okay, so there are two types of blood vessels. Okay, so the first one is veins. Okay, so veins are the first type of blood vessel. And the second one is arteries. Okay, so you've got veins and arteries. And it's very important to understand the functions of each of these blood vessels. So it's very important to distinguish between both of them. So the first one, so veins, they carry blood from the tissues and the muscles and the organs in our body back to the heart. Okay, and arteries carry blood from the heart to the organs or tissues and just the peripheries in general. Okay, so if we follow that principle and we start off with this vein here, it's just a fancy name. It's called the superior vena cava. It's one of the main veins that carries blood back to the heart. Okay, so blood from the peripheries of our bodies goes back. I'm going to actually use the color blue here. So blood from the peripheries goes back into the heart through the superior vena cava, which is a type of vein, and it goes into one of the four main chambers of the heart, and this chamber is called the right atrium. Okay, so another thing that I forgot to mention is that the heart is split up into two sides. Okay, so you've got two halves. So if you split it literally right down the middle, you've got the right side here, and you've got the left side here. And now it might seem a bit counterintuitive because you're thinking this is the left side and this is the right side. But you imagine it as if the heart was sitting inside the human. So if you just sort of imagine this heart is sitting inside your chest, you would then understand that this is your right side and this is your left side. Okay. So on the right side, the blood first comes into the right atrium, and then it flows through this valve into the right ventricle. And then it goes out of this right ventricle into the pulmonary artery, and then it goes to what we call the lungs. Okay, so if you remember, the importance of this is that if you remember back to what I told you, you'll remember that I said that the function of the blood is to carry oxygen to the rest of the body. Okay, so now if you think back here, the blood comes through the veins and into the right atrium, into the right ventricle. That blood is coming from the peripheries, it's coming from the tissues, it's coming from the organs. So all the oxygen that was present in that blood has been used up by the muscles and the tissues anyway. So all of this blood on this right side is now depleted of oxygen. It doesn't really have much oxygen in it. So now what we need to do is this right ventricle here, this chamber, needs to pump this deoxygenated blood, which means it doesn't have any oxygen inside it, all the way through to the heart. All the way through to the lungs, so that we can get oxygen. Because what's the function of the lungs? It allows us to breathe and get oxygen from the air into the blood. Okay, so now once we've got oxygen into the blood from the lungs, what happens is from the lungs, the blood goes through the pulmonary vein. So it comes from here. It's like a circuit. So this is the second part of the circuit. So it goes through the pulmonary vein into the left atrium, and then through this valve into the left ventricle. And then what happens is it goes through this valve here, through the aorta. And now the aorta is like a fancy word for the main big artery, okay, that comes from the heart. And the reason why it's so important is because the aorta distributes all of this oxygenated blood to different parts of the body. So it goes to the brain, it goes to your muscles, it goes to all of your other organs, and supplies them with oxygen, because as we mentioned, the lungs has just oxygenated this blood, and now this blood, all full of oxygen, comes through to the left atrium, left ventricle, goes out through the aorta and supplies all the oxygen all the way through the peripheries, okay, and to all the different organs. I hope that makes sense. So just to sort of reiterate, you've got the right side, and then you've got the left side of the heart. The right side, you've got deoxygenated blood. Okay, so blood without any oxygen that has come from the peripheries, going through these chambers, going out to the pulmonary artery, to the lungs, and then the lungs give this blood the oxygen it needs, and then the blood comes back full of oxygen into the left atrium, left ventricle, and then it goes out through the aorta all the way to the different organs in the peripheries and supplies them with oxygen. And as I mentioned before, why is oxygen so important for the tissues and the different organs in our body? Because it allows our tissues and the organs in our peripheries to carry out a process called respiration, which is essential for us to release energy and allow us to survive. Okay, so without the heart pumping blood to the lungs and then to the peripheries, we will not get any oxygen to the different organs and the tissues in our peripheries, and hence we won't be able to survive without any process of respiration occurring. It's because we won't be able to release any energy. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So just sort of going back through the different learning objectives that we had, we've definitely focused on the definition and function of the heart. Yeah. We've also focused on the function of blood, which was to deliver oxygen to the different tissues and organs that we have in our body. And we've also focused on the process of blood circulation, where we've looked at this double circulation or double pump, where the right side pumps the blood to the lungs to get oxygen, and the left side pumps the blood to the rest of the body. Okay, I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.